Hello, CFA candidates. This message is primarily geared towards those who have an exam after May, so this would be either August or November. And what I want to discuss with you is the things that you should be focusing in on at this stage of the game. So right now it's in April. What do you need to be doing in preparation for your August or November exam? Now, the main theme at this point is foundation building, and that means going over each of the LOS line items on our online portal on 2 separate occasions. One of our principles is layering. In other words, we go over the same material a repeated number of times. It's the same thing as learning a new language. In order to become fluent, you have to keep repeating those phrases over and over again, and it's the same thing here. For a lot of us, the material in the CFA curriculum is new, so it's like learning a new language. So in your first passage over the material, so here's our online portal, what we want to do is we want to go through each line item and sort of break the ice, just see what it's about, just to become familiar with it. So let's start off with time value of money. So I'm just using our level 1 portal as an illustration, but it's the same format for level 2 and level 3. So let me click the first one, so required rate of return, and here we go. Here's a video that talks about what required rate of return is. And the first thing I'm going to do when I'm seeing this for the first time, I'm just going to hear out what this thing is about. Now, even if only 50% of this material sinks in, that's perfect, because I know that this was my first exposure to the material. And that's exactly what we say here. So in the first passage, you just want to become familiar with the concepts. Therefore, even if only 50% of the stuff sinks in, that's perfect. The CFA curriculum is in a new language. It takes time to become fluent. And the reason I'm kind of dwelling on this is because I don't want candidates getting frustrated thinking that the first time they see something, they're supposed to master it. That's not how it works. So learning is a matter of degree rather than you either know it or you don't. So that's the reality of the CFA program, is learning is a spectrum. So you start off maybe retaining only 50% of the material, but then you go over it again. Now you're retaining 70% and then 80% and then maybe 90%. Now, once you've gone through all the LOS line items on our platform, you may then repeat this cycle, but this time making your own set of summary notes for each of the LOSs. And here's what I mean. So if you go back to our portal again, so here it is, and let's go back to the main page. So once I've gone through everything, and you can see there's a lot of line items because the CFA curriculum is massive. So first time, I'm just going to go through each LOS line item and just break the ice on the whole thing. But then when I come back a second time, and here's what I suggest. In your second passage over the material, maybe you can download the study guide. And actually, maybe you can download the study guide right away. And so right there. Okay. And here it is. So basically, whatever you saw on the video is included in the study guide itself, right there. So the second time I go through it, maybe what I could start doing is I can sort of make my own notes of what I think are the key takeaways from each LOS line item, right? So this study guide itself is 9 pages. So by the time you finish making your own set of summary notes for them, maybe you'll have it down to 2 or 3 pages of just the things that you need to know. And I got to tell you, that is a far better approach than just having a formula sheet. And I'll tell you why. Formulas probably will make up less than 10% of the exam. Most of the exam will be asking things like list or describe or, do a calculation that doesn't even need a formula. So this is why I'm not a big fan of formula sheets, because it gives you the impression that, oh, these are the formulas I need to memorize. No. That's just 10% of the material. There's a lot of other things you need to memorize, which is not in formula form. So by making a summary note of the entire chapter, that summary note becomes all-inclusive rather than just formulas. Now, the other thing with making summary notes is that this exercise will not only deepen your understanding of the material, but it will also help you retain that knowledge for a longer period. And that's what happens. It's called the link between the pen and the brain. So when you write something down, it gets etched into your memory far more than just reading it alone. Now, what's the one thing you should not be focusing in on too much at this stage? The thing you should not get bogged down on is the practice questions. It is just way too soon. Now, all the candidates tell me, like, if I do a question, I'll get it. I couldn't agree with you more. But I'd rather you get it 8 weeks before the exam than 6 months before the exam. See, here's what you got to remember, ladies and gentlemen. This CFA material is not retainable for a long period of time. In fact, ask any CFA charter holder what they remember. They'll probably only remember 5% of the material that they went through. The point I'm trying to make here is this stuff is not retainable. It's only going to be in your mind for a short period of time. So when you get it, I want you to get it close to the exam time so that you'll be in peak condition during the exam. So if you're doing questions 6 months or 5 months before your exam, I guarantee you'll forget whatever it is you learned doing questions, because there's so much stuff that still needs to be squeezed into your head between now and exam day. So let's leave the questions to the end. First, let's go through all the LOSs, develop the solid foundation, and then when we do the questions towards the end, that's a perfect segue leading into the exam. Because then at that point, whatever mistakes I made during practice questions, I'll remember during the exam. Now, if you do look at the questions right now, here's my suggestion. Just look at the solution at the same time. And so what this says is, before you can run, let's learn how to walk, right? So if you are going to be doing, looking at these questions during your second passage over the material, that's when you're making summary notes. Now, I suggest you look at the solutions right away. And the beauty with that is as follows. It'll make the process of getting through the chapters much quicker. Because here's what happens with candidates that do a deep dive on the practice questions following each chapter. It takes way too long to get through each chapter, right? Because they're trying to attempt these questions on their own the first time they see it. So it's taking them 3 times as long to do it as compared to how long it's going to take on the exam. And a lot of times, they never get through all the chapters because it took too long to get through each chapter. So of greater importance right now is just getting through all the chapters rather than doing a deep dive on a chapter by chapter basis. Again, you will have the opportunity to attempt the practice questions independently in the final 6-8 week period before the exam. So you got to get a little philosophical here in your prep. And here's what I mean by philosophical. So a life lesson for human development is as follows. First, we learn how to crawl. Then we learn how to walk. Then we learn how to run. It's the same thing here. First, become familiar with the material. That's your first passage over the material, right? That's like learning how to crawl. And then go over it a second time and make your own set of summary notes for each of the LOSs. So now you're learning how to walk. And then in the final phase, we do the practice questions, and at that point, you're running, if not sprinting. Actually, the mock would be the sprint in our analogy here. Now, the other thing I need to bring to your attention in this video brief is the fact that we have some Zoom review sessions coming up, and I'm going to attach the schedule to this brief. And these are 6 3-hour sessions over Zoom. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over all the high priority items from each of the chapters. And as you can imagine, we are really going to expedite the process. So what I'm going to recommend is before each session, you would have at least reviewed all the chapters that we're going to be taking up. And of course, in the briefings, I'll let you know which chapters we're going to take up. And you at least would want to have had read the material before the super review session, because literally we're gonna I'm not gonna say we're gonna fly through it, but we're gonna expedite it. So I'll say for chapter 1.1, here's what you need to know. Boom, boom, boom. Maybe we spent 15, 20 minutes, and in some rare occasions, if the chapter is extensive, we'll spend like half an hour, 45 minutes. But again, by nailing those key points in each of the chapters, these would be the pillars in each chapter, then you can actually connect the dots for everything else that's within the chapter. And that's going to be the philosophy behind those super review sessions over Zoom. Okay. So again, I'll have more details for these in subsequent briefings. And I said before, to get the most out of these sessions prior to the scheduled dates, make sure you go over all the LOS line items on our online portal. And I think you're going to get a lot of these sessions. And here's the other big bonus. If you're already registered on our online prep, these things are free. So there's absolutely no reason why you can't tune in for just 3 hours for 6 Saturdays. It'll be well worth your time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll see you soon.